Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to another wonderful Cook Along Live. My name is Robert. I'm your host. Today, we're going to be prepping for next week, doing a little bit of cooking along so that we can get these things kind of dialed in. So that next week for the super football game that's going to be on, that I think I'm not allowed to use on stream because I don't own the rights to it or something like that. It has something to do with owls, a ball, being super. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but I know people are very interested in it. So in preparation for that, and because I assume that next week no one's going to be watching my cook-along stream because you're probably going to be eating and virtually hanging out with friends and watching a pretty fun game, we're going to be doing all that this week. That way you guys can at least watch, see kind of what goes into 3 iconic football game snacks that I like to eat. I like to make kind of some hot and spicy wings. I like to make deviled eggs, and I like to make Caprese Kabobs, or kind of what I call them. I don't know if they have an actual name. Pretty simple. Everything here is pretty easy to do. Nothing crazy. The wings just take the longest. So while we're waiting on the wings to kind of cook in the oven, we are going to get everything else dialed in. How's everybody's week been? You guys had a good one? Everybody doing well? Awesome. I am too. Tonight, I'm going to be drinking Elysian Space Dust. This is one of my favorite beers. They make some really good, tasty drinks. We're going to go ahead and get that going, and then we will get started with the chicken wings. Go ahead and preheat your oven. You want to get it up to 425 is what you're looking for. While you guys are doing that, mine's already preheating over there. I'll get my beer on. That smells good. It always tastes delicious. Awesome. I got about 2 pounds of wings here. They're just party wings. You can pick them up at your grocery store. Sometimes they're in the frozen food section. So since it's kind of football season, I found a bunch of ones out in the fresh racks, just the chillers. But sometimes you'll only find them in the freezer section. So go take a look in there if you can't find them anywhere else. Basically, just get them out. I have them laid out on a paper towel, basically to dry them out. Because as we know, the drier the meat is, the more kind of crispy it gets. So I'm also just going to kind of pat everything dry here real quick. Just a smaller paper towel. And then we're going to transfer these guys into a bowl. We'll go ahead and that. We'll pop these guys into a bowl. I'm more of a fan of flats. How about y'all? Are you guys drumsticks or drumettes or flats people? I think it's a lot easier to get all the meat off the flat. They're just less messy, in my opinion. But everyone has a different favorite. Once we get these guys into the bowl, we're going to start building the dry, I don't really want to call it a dry rub. I just kind of want to call it the dry seasoning. Set that there. We'll move this aside for now. And go ahead and get a small little bowl out. Hey, Castro, how's it going, man? Or are you a girl? I'm not sure. I actually don't know what you are. So welcome to the stream again. Always fun to have you on. Drumsticks all the way. All right, man. Or woman, or non-binary pal. Either way, these are awesome wings. We're going to start with 2 tablespoons of baking powder, of all things. So let's grab our spoon. And if I'm remembering correctly, you're from the UK, is that correct? Now what the baking powder does is it actually crisps up the skin, very similarly to if you were to deep fry these. I got this trick from Chef John of foodwishes.com. I don't know if you guys follow him at all, but the base of this kind of dry seasoning mix is from him. And then I just added a couple of other things like some chili powder and things. We're also going to put in 1 tablespoon of salt. Ha! from the USA. What state are you in, man? Here. We're going to do some chili powder. I'm actually going to put in actual chili powder, not cayenne. It gives it a little bit of a zing. And what am I doing? We're doing about a teaspoon of chili powder. So what I'm going to do is actually grab my half teaspoon, because it fits into my spice jars, and I'm just going to put in 2. Now, chili powder versus cayenne. Chili powder is not as spicy. You get the kind of pepper flavor, but it's made with a blend of peppers as opposed to just a spicy pepper. So it's got a little bit of a zing, but not enough to like blow your face off. Whereas if you put in a tablespoon of cayenne, there'd be a slightly different effect here. I'm also going to put in a little bit of smoked paprika. I like to shake up my spice containers until everything is nice and loose. Again, about a teaspoon of the smoked paprika. Then we're going to add about a teaspoon of fresh ground pepper. I'm going to make this pretty fine grind. And this is our seasoning for our wings. This will kind of be the base. So I'm basically just going to kind of spin it around, grab a spoon or a fork, and just mix things together. Be a little bit gentle here because the baking powder tends to kind of poof all over the place if you're a little too rough. So give it a nice little mix. This is basically going to make it so that you're seasoning with salt, pepper, the chili powder, the smoked paprika, and dusting with the baking powder. Get your wings a nice crispy exterior. Arizona, awesome. Like the Phoenix area or Sedona? I drove through Arizona while I was on my way across the country to Georgia. Got to see a lot of really cool stuff out there. We're basically just going to dust our wings with about half of our seasoning. And I'm just tossing them up and down. You can use your hands if you want, just to mix it all through. Put about half in, and put in the other half. This just allows you to get a little bit more of an even coat. There we are. And the last of it. Get a good dusting on every wing. Cool. Now we're going to grab that baking sheet. You'll notice that I've got it lined with aluminum foil, and then on top of the aluminum foil I've just got like a cooling rack, like a cookie cooling rack, and that allows the wings to get a little bit more airflow around them. Any grease that kind of drops off, the fat from the skin, etc., it's just going to fall down into the bottom, but it's not going to burn onto the pan. We can just remove the baking foil or the tin foil and discard it. Makes it a lot easier to clean. I'm just going to go ahead and put my wings spaced out with about a ½ inch of space between them on the rack, and we'll go ahead and alternate the way that the drumettes sit. Yeah, my cousin and I are also opposites when it comes to which wings we like. I like the flats, he likes the drumettes. So he will usually what we'll do is we'll just order like a 30 wing or however many at Buffalo Wild Wings if we go there. We'll just get like the bigger one, and then it usually comes pretty evenly split. I'll just give him all the drumettes. I'll take all of the flats. Works pretty well, and it's cheaper than getting 2 trays. A little pro tip there if you frequent Buffalo Wild Wings. All right. And then once we get these guys all laid out, they're just going straight in the oven. And we're going to set a timer for about 20 minutes while we move on to our deviled eggs. Now, as far as the deviled eggs go, the ingredients list that I put online said to have already hard-boiled eggs. So that's what I'm expecting you to have. If you did not already hard-boil your eggs, don't worry, it doesn't take too long, but you will be a little bit behind. What I want you to do is get a little pot, something like this, or maybe just a slightly bigger one. Put your eggs in the bottom of the pot, just cover them with water. Bring the water up to the boil. As soon as it starts boiling, turn off the heat and let them sit in the pot covered for about 10 minutes. And then pull them out and put them right into an ice bath. All right, there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and toss these guys in the oven, and then we're gonna go over to the sink cam while I wash off my bowl. And again, the oven is set at 425. Hey Siri, set a timer for 20 minutes. And we'll switch over here. And we're going to be reusing this bowl for our sauce a little bit later. So I just want to kind of give it a nice rinse, suds it out, and then set it over here to dry while the wings cook. And same thing with the clicky clickies. Going to give them a nice little rinse and sudsing as well, just to make sure everything is clean as we move through here. Alright. How's the weather over in Arizona? Over here it's been really strange. We had one hell of a rainstorm earlier this week. And then ever since it's been pretty nice. It's supposed to be like a high of 62 today and it ended up being like 74. So can't complain about the California weather. And a lot of wind. Actually, a tree right in front of my house got blown in half. They had some chainsaw crews out at like 3 in the morning, cutting up the peak, because I live on a main street, and the tree had fallen into the main street, and so they were out there clearing it because they have to on a main thoroughfare at 3 in the morning. That was a lot of fun. Come back to here, and we'll go ahead and get started with our eggs. So the eggs are pretty cool. We got everything already hopefully hard-boiled, and I hard-boiled a whole lot of them because I'm just going to keep eating them. But what we're going to want to do is grab 6 of them for our deviled eggs. So I'm just going to kind of pick the 6 that look the best. A little small. These all look about the same size. Yeah, that's good. And I got 5 left for breakfast over the next couple of days. I'm gonna take a pause and sip of my beer. No, it's all good, Drake. The best part about that was that the following day I was actually having an audition for another. So part of what I do, part of my job, I'm a real estate agent here in the Bay Area. And so if you have anybody who's looking in the area, by all means, send them my way. But I also train in our company. I train technology in Southern California. I do a lot of that over Zoom. And I was also applying for another training position in the same company, kind of like not a second job per se, but just another opportunity to be training a different set of agents. And my audition was the day after I was up all night with everybody out there chainsawing. I won the audition, so it's awesome. I got that position as well, which is great. However, I was a little bit stressed that morning when I woke up and was like, oh, today's going to be a wonderful day. Anyway, it's all about mindset. Got to turn that frown upside down. All right, so I've got these guys. They were all boiled earlier today. If you boil new eggs, they tend to be harder to peel. If you boil eggs that are like a couple days old, 3, 4, 5 days old maybe, the shells come off a lot easier. I also took them straight from the boiling water, put them into an ice bath, and what that does is help the white contract quickly, and that actually pops it away from the shell a little bit. So if you have a little bowl of water and then put a bunch of ice in there, transfer your eggs straight from the hot water into the cold ice water, it'll actually help you, it'll actually make them easier to peel as well. And then going straight from that, taking them out, putting them in a bowl and tossing them in the fridge to cool down even more, the best way to do it. When you put them from the hot water into the ice bath, just make sure that you leave them there for about 15-20 minutes so that they cool down all the way, the best way. And then I'm just going to go ahead and get these guys peeled. I like to lightly kind of tap them all over. And then I try and get under that membrane. Usually on one side there's always an air pocket. It's usually the kind of more round side of the egg. And I try and kind of peel through that little skinny membrane there, because that also goes kind of underneath the shell, and then it just kind of slips everything off. Usually. It's not 100% effective, but usually that works a lot nicer. And there we go. And then very similar to how we've done like tomatoes in the past, I'm just going to go ahead and peel all of these before I continue and make our deviled filling. So I'll set him there. Try and get underneath that membrane again. I'm just going to peel these all into one giant pile and then scoop the pile into the garbage. Makes it a little bit easier. And this guy's getting a little sticky. So again, it's not 100% foolproof, but works pretty well. Also, for deviled eggs, they don't have to look all that perfect. Sometimes if you're trying to show off the devil, making it look a little ragged gives you a slight edge. Ooh, this guy is getting sticky on that side. Definitely going to look ragged, and it's a good thing we have extra eggs. If I ruin one, I'll just pull in a backup. I've seen worse. We'll see what we can do with that. We'll just go ahead and continue to slide these shells off. Now another thing is, some of those eggs were older eggs, and some of those eggs were newer eggs. So it's a possibility that I grabbed a bunch of the newer eggs out of that bowl. And so those ones might be harder to peel. I'll always grab my next flat of eggs when I'm about I would say 3/4 of the way done with the current one. And so I got about 4 older eggs and another 6 or so fresher eggs. What are some of your guys' favorite Super Bowl, football, game, tournament style thing, appetizers that you guys like to cook? I legitimately think that I'm not supposed to be saying that because I don't think I've licensed it. Well, I know I haven't licensed it because I'm not going to pay what they want you to pay to license it. But I seem to remember a couple of channels a while back getting in trouble. Which doesn't make sense to me. Everybody knows what you're talking about. But, whatever. All right. There we go. Yes, the superb aviaries. Night birds. Night hawks. What an owl is, kind of, right? Yeah, the devil ain't pretty. I'm drinking Elysian Space Dust. Really, really tasty IPA. One of my favorites. If I go out to a bar and that's on draft, that's what I'll usually get. unless there's something special. But that's like my go-to. Hey, it's pretty much everywhere now, so. And tasty. And not ridiculously expensive. Back when we were able to go out, the bowling alley that my friends and I would go to for bowling night, they had it on draft there, and it was actually really cheap there. And it is so good. Helps you get to that Balmer Peak a little bit quicker. For those of you who know what the Balmer Peak is, you'll get that joke. For those of you who don't, the Balmer Peak is the point at which the consumption of any kind of alcoholic beverage takes you to a peak of high performance, because it loosens you, makes you a little bit more laid back, etc. And then once you pass that Balmer Peak, it's a steep drop from there. But it's pretty funny. You can see people, especially bowling, progressively getting better and better until they hit that peak, and then the games stop being ice scoring. Doesn't mean they don't get any more fun. They just, the scores start suffering. So this is our last egg. We only got one really bad one. I'm going to go ahead and allow it and see how it turns out. There we go. Now I've got a bunch of little shell shards all over those eggs. We're going to go ahead and rinse them off really quick, but I'm just going to kind of get these shells off the cutting board. There we are. We're going to see you back at the sink cam, and we're going to get these guys rinsed off real quick. I almost dropped one of them, which is fun. You don't really have to do very much. Once you get the majority of the shell off, just running them under the cold water will pull off the rest of the shells. And that's all we got to do. Back to the cutting board. And we're back. I'll go ahead and just dry off my hands. Now, I'm just going to reuse this bowl that had all of our seasoning in it. That never touched the chicken. It's got maybe a little bit of baking powder in it, but honestly, it's not going to make that big of a difference. And we're going to go ahead and cut these eggs. We're going to cut them lengthwise. So I want these guys to be vertical, like so. And we're just going to cut through them vertically, like fat end to skinny end, like so. And we're just going to set these guys aside as we cut them. Again, I like to kind of just go one step at a time, cutting everything in half. I'm going to find the ugly end. No offense, little egg. Cut through it like that. We'll cut through this guy. Hey Siri, how much time is left on the timer? All right. And the last one over here. So you'll notice that we had 6 eggs, which means that we're going to have 12 halves of the egg. And all I'm going to do is pop out the yolk. I'm going to basically just use my finger and just kind of lift up on one side so that it separates from the center, then just lift it out. It should come right out. I'm not going to worry too much about any like residue on the inside of the egg. Doesn't really matter. I just want to get the majority of the yolk out. And we're going to go ahead and set these guys up at the top. Might actually need a bigger bowl, so we may be transferring to something slightly larger. Yeah, I'm not really going for anybody. I'm not super worried about the sports ball that's going on. For me, it's all about the food. It really always has been. I'm not a diehard fan. As long as the game is fun, as long as the halftime show is okay, as long as the commercials are funny. That's what I watch the game on Sunday for. Yeah, I'm going to grab a slightly bigger bowl than that. And then, as long as that's the case, I'm good. I mean, it's kind of, I think it's exciting that Tom Brady is in the Super Bowl again. I know some people really don't like him. I think that anybody who is at the level that he's at, kind of exciting to see somebody just dominate that much. All right, so we got our egg yolks in there. I'm probably not going to be able to use this guy because he's kind of torn, but we'll see. We'll play around with it. Set him over there for now. We're going to put in about 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise. Now, you may recognize this mayonnaise from the sushi episode where we were doing our sushi stuff. This is Kupai Mayonnaise. It's Asian. I think it's Japanese. I'm not sure, but it's a much richer mayonnaise. If you can find it, it's usually in Asian markets. It's awesome, and I recommend that over like your standard Hellmann's or Best Foods, whatever it is in your area. This has a much richer flavor. We're going to go ahead and do about 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise. I know that looks like a lot. Deviled eggs are not healthy for you. In case there was any question about that. We're going to put in just about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Don't want too much, just enough for a little bit of flavor. Now we're also going to put in a little bit of either chili powder or cayenne. Now, deviled eggs got their name because deviled foods, things that are deviled, are supposed to be spicy. So depending on how hot you like your deviled eggs, you can either choose to go with the milder chili powder. It'll still give you that same kind of flavor, but it won't be as spicy. Or you can go for actual full-strength cayenne, which is what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to put in a tablespoon. So not much. It's not going to give it too much of a kick. But we want to go for a little bit of heat in my deviled eggs. Last thing we're going to put in, well, like I should say second to last thing, second hot thing that we're going to put in is any kind of hot sauce of your choice. You can use sambal. I'm just using sriracha. And anything that you like. Just want a little bit in there, maybe like a tablespoon again, not too much. But again, we want to kind of spice this up. We want this to be a little bit warm when you eat these guys. Yum. And last but not least, just a tiny bit of apple cider vinegar. I know I put like a teaspoon in the recipe. You really don't need that much. Maybe like a half teaspoon, just enough. It gives it just that little bit of a zing. And then, with all of this stuff in here, we're going to go ahead and mash this up. And I talk a little bit when I make guacamole about how things that I don't mind getting kind of squished and crushed, I'll put in at the beginning of the guacamole, because then I'm using the potato masher or fork or whatever to really kind of get in there and make sure that things are combined without running the risk of smashing ingredients that I want to kind of stick out. In the case of guacamole, like tomatoes or green onions. You don't really want to squish the green onions because you'll just bruise them. It won't make it taste any better. It'll actually give it kind of an off flavor. So I'll add those after I mash everything together. The same thing is true here with my deviled eggs. I'm adding everything that I don't mind if I mash up. In this case, eggs, mayonnaise, all of the powdered ingredients, things like that. We're still going to add a little bit of dill, and we're still going to cut up a couple of pickles and add them into this mix as well. But I don't want to crush them. I want those to be identifiable in the final product. So I'm going to add them after I mix this. And a spoon probably wasn't the best utensil of choice here. A fork might have been a little bit better. However, now since I'm committed, Let's see what we can do. And what I really want to do is just make sure that all of my yolks are well incorporated into the rest of the wet ingredients. You'll see it thicken up and almost kind of look a little bit chalky. And that's a good consistency. But if you still see lumps, see if you can kind of mash them down and really mix them in well. There we go. Gonna get everything off the spoon and then give it a nice mix. And then we'll give it a nice little taste before we add anything. That's a good filling. I'm gonna put in a little bit of salt. Like a quarter teaspoon of salt or so. You really don't want to go very heavy on the salt. A lot of the other ingredients already have salt, but needs just a touch. And then when I add the dill and the pickles, hey Siri, stop the timer. When I add the dill and the pickles, it's going to change the flavor a little bit, make it a little bit less salty. I'm just kind of preemptively. So what I'm going to do, our timer went off. We're going to hop over, grab our wings out real quick, give them a nice flip, and then put them back in the oven. Guys, kind of up out of the way. Now, when we pull these guys out, they may look terribly, terribly disgusting, and that is perfectly normal. That's the baking powder taking effect. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they look fine. But sometimes they look super dry and kind of weird. So bear with me if that's the case. Once we flip them and bake them a little longer, they will start looking fine. Here we go. Oof. So you can see that we've got some kind of dry spots on these wings. They don't look amazing. They look almost like they're kind of like half drying out. Don't worry about that. That is perfectly fine. And what will end up happening once we rotate them, some of the fat is going to start dripping down and kind of getting those a little bit marinated and cooked a bit. I've done these a ton of times. They always come out perfect. You'll notice I'm leaving the oven closed. Maybe you can't because it looks like that preview is very, very tiny. So let's do that. Keeping the oven closed over here because I want it to come back up to temperature. I don't want to leave the oven door open and lose all of that heat. We're already losing a bunch of it when we open it to pull the wings out. So by closing it, I'm just making sure that I keep it as warm as I can. All right, we'll get these guys back in the oven and start another timer for about 20 minutes and continue with our eggs. Hey Siri, set a timer for 20 minutes. There we go. All right, where were we? Cool. So I've just mixed in a bunch of salt. It's had a little bit of time to kind of dissolve into this mixture. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a taste. Hey Mulch, how's it going, man? Tastes really good. Not too salty. Next step, we're gonna grab our pickles. Now I'm using these pickles. They're called Snack-Mms, and they're spicy minis. Now my stepbrother actually turned me onto these. They are super tasty, like even just to snack on. They're almost gherkin sized. So they're like little small snack pickles. But they're almost like a cross between kind of butter pickles and spicy pickles. And if you don't like the butter pickles, don't worry, neither do I. But these things are super, super tasty. So I'm gonna grab, and we're probably only gonna use 2 or 3 of them. but I'm just gonna take a bunch out in case I need to grab more. And I'm gonna start with the bigger ones, slice them down. Now for pickles, same thing as anything else that we cut. Basically gonna lay it flat, cut it lengthwise a couple times. I'm not too worried that I've got a little bit of egg on my knife, a little bit of that yolk, because these pickles are gonna go right into the filling for the deviled eggs. So they're gonna be covered in yolk in a second anyway. We're just gonna cut long straights. And we're gonna turn it vertical. Cut down, cut down, cut down, and we'll turn it 90 degrees again. Now we'll just cut nice little squares of pickle, like so. Yeah, we'll probably only need 2. Actually, 1 might do it. You don't want too much of the pickle flavor. It's just there to give it that little hint. I'll grab one of these smaller ones. Again, we'll just kind of cut horizontally a couple of times. 1, 2. Don't worry about the thinness of your horizontal cut. The vertical cuts and then the cross cuts are where you're really gonna control how thick your pickle dice is. If you're only able to cut them in half or cut them into thirds, don't worry too much about it. Focus more on your vertical cutting. There we go. And again, if you've been watching the cook along, you know that we always kind of put our hand in this little claw shape so that we can use the knuckle as kind of a guide and just move the knife up and down the knuckle. And that way you're way less likely to cut yourself. Sacrifice to the chef. With these, since they're kind of sweeter pickles, that's why we want to add a little bit of salt to our mixture. If you're just using dill pickles, might add a little bit of salt. So maybe season at the end, but it shouldn't be too much. Okay, go ahead and give that a nice mix through. Just kind of see what it looks like. Make sure the distribution is what you're looking for. Yeah, it's about good. And actually now what I'm doing is I'm kind of thinking ahead to after I've piped the filling into the eggs, I might want a couple of little pickle squares just to add to the plating. So while I'm here and thinking about it, I'll go ahead and dice up 1 more pickle, and we'll play around with that once we get to plating. Go. I'll just cut vertically. And I see the chat window moving over there, so I'm going to take a look in just a second. Let's go ahead and just kind of dice this guy down. You'll notice that I'm holding my hand here in my little claw, and I'm holding the whole pickle down, and then I'm just sliding my knife down my knuckle, just making sure that all of my fingers are behind that. There we go. That should be plenty, just to kind of garnish our eggs at the end. I'm going to set these over on this side, out of the way. And we'll grab our dill. Now, check the chat real quick. The spice must flow. Yes, yes, yes. Ooh, pickles on a cheese grater might work. Yeah, the claw. Oh, it's like duplicating your text. Sorry about that. Have I done a fish and chip stream yet? Have I? I don't know. I've done fried chicken. I don't think I've done fish and chips yet. Here, I can definitely do that. Maybe we'll do that soon. We'll figure that one out. I'll go check and make sure that I don't already have one. And then if not, Kevin, haha, Guacamole King. Dude, I'm gonna go up against you at one point with guacamole because I think I'm the Guacamole King. Yes, their bottle art is great. Elysian, the brewing company, is really, really good. Ooh, meatballs in a crock pot. A good good option. Olive slices make a nice garnish on deviled eggs. Never tried it. I might. Not tonight, since I don't have any olives, but that does sound really good. I'm an olive fiend. I love olives. So I will put olives on anything. So we got dill. It's a pretty thick stalk plant. It's got a lot of really small, delicate leaves on it. And very similar to thyme. We really, really just want the leaves. The stalk is kind of too crunchy, a little bit stringy, if you will. So what we want to do is just kind of go up and pick off just kind of the soft part of the leaves. It doesn't take very much time to do it, no pun intended with the time, but it will result in a much tastier final mix for whatever you're doing with dill. I think the only time that I would use like a full thing of dill would be if I were stuffing it in a salmon or something like that, just to get some of the aromatic flavor, but I wasn't planning on eating it. That's when I would use like a whole stalk of dill. The rest of this you can compost or just toss it, whatever you're gonna do with it. But I don't really like putting it in something that's mostly like a non-cooked dish. I'll probably do it with just a couple more of these guys. And all I'm doing is just kind of peeling them off. Just set them on the cutting board. And again, I don't want to go too crazy with the dill. I want enough to kind of sprinkle it throughout everything, but I don't want to like over dill this. So for the dill, we're going to roll it up kind of into as much of a cigar as you can. And then same thing with the knife. Just make sure your hands are kind of clawed out. And we're just going to rock the knife back and forth just once. Just like so. Brush everything off of your knife. Missed one, so I'm just going to kind of go over that one real quick. And then I'm just going to use my fingers here to make sure that it's nice and cut up. And that looks pretty good. Go ahead and put it into our filling. We'll mix it through and we'll give it one more taste. Because again, we're adding more ingredients, so we want to make sure that we're not making it too unseasoned, because a lot of this is going to kind of change the seasoning level, change the salt. You can change the overall flavor, especially with the addition of the dill and those kind of hot and spicy pickles. There we are. Make sure that I get all of it off of the spoon. Sometimes the dill will kind of stick to the spoon, so just make sure you get that all worked in as well. I'll give this a little. That is good. Don't think I need any salt, so I think I'm good. Now, it's getting the filling into the eggs and then just kind of dressing them up for plating. I'm going to go ahead and I like to use plastic bags for piping bags. So I'm going to get a small Ziploc bag and just kind of cut off the corner after I fill it with this filling. Makes it super, super easy to fill these eggs. If you don't want to do that, you can absolutely just kind of scoop it in a little bit at a time. Totally up to you and how you want to do your thing. But I'm going to do what I do, which is just a little little thing. Yeah, they're duplicating in my chat window too, which is strange. Yeah, there's a lot of, I'm going to say, excitable people out there right now that really like to show off what they're compensating for. So again, we're going to be piping this into our eggs. I'm just going to scoop it out of the bowl into the Ziploc bag. If you have a piping bag, you can use that as well. I'm just going to get as much of this out as I can. I'll set that over to the side. Just make sure that that's all in the bag. And then with the bag open, we're going to kind of squeeze everything down towards the corner, like so. Hey Siri, how much time is left on the timer? All right, not bad. And once I get it to this point, I'm basically going to come down and take off about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch. I want the opening on the bottom to be, if you kind of look at it, it should be about 1/2 inch. If you're using a piping bag and it's got one of those cool like rosettes on the end of it, you can actually come up with some pretty cool patterns. I'm not that fancy. I'm basically just going to grab the top and just kind of squeeze down just a bit and then pull up an egg half like so. Piping bag right in the middle, and just fill the egg until it comes up about, I don't know, 1/4 inch out of the little half of the egg. And that's what I'm going to do with all of my eggs here. You may have a little bit of leftover filling, in which case you can come in and add some more maybe to some of the ones that aren't as full. But start off a little bit conservative. There we go. We are. We're 6. Seven. 8. 9. All of these ones look kind of suspect. All right, those aren't going to get used. Maybe I'll grab another one of the hard-boiled eggs, or 10 is good enough. I'll leave it at 10. So we got 10 already here. I got a little bit of extra. If I wanted to add one more egg, I wouldn't have to do everything to make the filling. I've already got a little bit left over. I could just use that yolk, maybe eat it with the other egg for breakfast tomorrow. But this is basically getting everything set up. Now, let's talk about plating. I wish I had one of those little egg plates, but I don't. So, we are going to improvise with one of these other plates. Yeah, you'll have to come up here and grab some, man. I don't think that they would survive the trip, the mail trip to Arizona. Here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of the nice ones maybe put this little derpy one in the middle. We'll see if we can caravan wagon around him with the rest of these guys. Something like so. Something like that. Let's see. Go ahead and spin him around just a little bit. Try and get that yolk in the middle. All right, so that looks kind of fun. And this is probably fine, like if you wanted to just leave it like this. I like to add just a little bit more of actually the cayenne pepper. Just kind of sprinkle it right over the yolks. Get a nice little dusting of cayenne. And you can absolutely dust these on a different plate and then transfer them to your serving plate if you want the plate to be super clean. I'm not super worried about that, usually. Now, if I'm doing a hot version like this and then maybe a milder version for the kids or for, you know, people who aren't super into hot food, and these aren't really hot, like this is not gonna kill you. This is not hot to the point where you're not gonna be able to breathe. But it's got a little bit of zing to it. If I'm doing one that does not have any spice in it, I'll leave out the pickles, and maybe I'll just use dill pickles. And I won't put the sriracha in the actual mix. I'll use chili powder for both the filling mix as well as dusting them so that there's no heat. Hey Mom, how's it going? Yeah, I know you have a ton of egg plates. I'm jealous. I want one. Or paprika. Paprika, smoked paprika, those both work as well. I'm just munching on those pickles. All right, so we got these dusted. Let's see what we can do with those little pickles here. I'm gonna grab like 2 or 3. And what we'll do is we'll test it out on this center one. Kind of plop them onto the top here, almost as if they were caviar. Something like that. And since these are the spicy ones, maybe what I'll do is put just a little drop of sriracha down, like so. And we'll come into our dill, grab a nice sprig, and just kind of lay it right over the top, right in between the two. It's a pretty cute little deviled egg. Switch over to camera and see if you guys can take a look at that. How's that look? Hey Siri, stop the timer. Kind of fun. Makes it look a little bit more pretty. Now, as you might have heard, our wings are done, or not done, but they're ready for their next flip. So I'm again gonna just kind of clean off the workspace just a bit. Yep, a lot of people with small things going on out there. All right, so grab our wings, we'll give them one more flip. And ooh, these guys are looking nice. Go ahead and switch back to this. Now, it probably goes without saying, your tray is going to be super hot, so just make sure you're using something if you're actually going to touch it. Don't accidentally grab the side of it, because that never feels very good. And all we're going to do is just flip them one more time. They're going to go in for another about 15-20 minutes, maybe. And they're going to crisp right up. And then we'll toss them in our homemade sauce, which we're going to make in just a second as well. Here we go. You might still have a little bit of those dry spots, but they will kind of cook off or cook out. And these smell amazing, even without anything on them. They smell great. Nice and roasty and delicious. All right. Get those guys flipped, toss them back in the oven, and give them about 15-20 more minutes, and they should be done. Hey Siri, set a timer for 20 minutes. And we'll check on them in 15. All right, go ahead and continue with our eggs. I really like that design, so I think I'm just going to keep going with it. Grab a little bit of our pickle mixture. I'm just going to kind of caviar it off on the side that has more of the white exposed. And the reason that I'm choosing that side is because that's kind of the boring side, right? It has a little bit of our chili powder or paprika or whatever you're putting on as far as your dusting goes. But other than that, kind of boring. There's not really much going on. So we're adding a little bit of contrast, making it look slightly interesting. Again, just a squirt of our sriracha. And then a sprig of dill right in between the two. The sriracha will kind of hold on to it. And then we'll do that on all of these. So what I'm going to do is actually pick up, I'll just do it one at a time. So while we're doing this, we're also going to be doing our Caprese Skewers. So go ahead and grab your balsamic vinegar. Let's see, where is mine? Right here. Go ahead and grab your balsamic vinegar. And you're going to put about, in a small saucepan, you're going to put about a half a cup of balsamic vinegar. You can go to a cup if you want. And what we're going to do is put this on low heat. Basically get it to start simmering. I'm just going to go with all of mine. I'm almost done with it anyway. Might as well just replace. And we're going to make a balsamic reduction. It's super, super simple to do. Basically, just get some balsamic in here, turn it on like a medium heat. It's going to come up to temperature. It's going to start simmering. Turn it down until it's just a very, very gentle simmer. And then while it's gently simmering, a lot of the moisture is going to come out. So it's going to thicken up. It's also going to make it a little bit sweeter, but it's going to make it more sticky as well. So generally when you're making like a caprese salad, you just pour the balsamic on, it goes all over the plate, but you're eating like an entire slice of tomato, slice of mozzarella cheese, shredded basil or whatever else is on top of there. In this case, we're going to be drizzling it over some cherry tomatoes that are on skewers with the little pearls of mozzarella, which are on skewers. It's going to kind of slide right off of that. And you're not really going to get that balsamic flavor with the rest of the skewer. By turning it into a stickier little kind of balsamic reduction, it sticks a lot better to everything on the skewer, and you get a lot of that flavor back that you don't generally get if you're doing like skewers. So that's why we're doing this. Again, just kind of like a medium heat. You really just kind of keep an eye on it. You want to keep an eye on it until it just starts kind of boiling. You don't really want it to get rolling. You just want it to start bubbling and then turn down the heat so that it just kind of simmers away until it thickens up a bit. So I'm going to go ahead. You can see that the steam is kind of coming out of mine right now. If I switch over here, still steaming, not quite bubbling yet, but we're going to keep an eye on it real close. Chopped parsley is also great for decoration if you don't want to get as artsy as I am. However, if you do this kind of a thing, I'm telling you, people think you're a good cook just because you take a couple of seconds to make something look a little bit better. Doesn't taste any different, but people are like, wow, you're so good. All right, cool. So my balsamic has started kind of simmering. I'm going to get it to a point where it's just a light little bubble. can see it in there. And we're just going to let it kind of simmer very lightly until it thickens up a bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and put all of my pickles on. Again, if you focus on one thing at a time, things tend to go a lot quicker. Since I was experimenting with the first one or two, I just kind of did them one at a time. But now I'm just going to kind of get into pickle mode. Place the pickles on the side that I want the pickles on. And again, kind of focusing on this will help it go a little bit faster. And honestly, you've already got pickles in there, so if you mess one up, don't worry, it's all good. A little bit here. And also don't be afraid to rotate the plate. I'm finding it a little bit harder over here on the left-hand side of the plate to get these things on. So I'm actually just going to rotate the plate this way because it's easier for me on the right. And I'm just going to go ahead and finish off. Should have pretty much a perfect amount of pickles. Maybe shorten myself just a bit. But close enough. There we go. Last little pickles over on this side. And then it'll be pretty quick to put the sriracha dots on. And every time I go to pick up more pickles, I'm glancing into my balsamic, kind of see how the reduction looks. And just making sure it's not getting too thick. Grab a couple of these pickles, pop them right there. Now we can go around with our sriracha. Hey Aaron, how's it going? Thank you so much. Go ahead and put a dot there, dot there. I'm just going to rotate the plate, that way I don't even have to move the sriracha. Just add these little dots as I go. And I'm also using the sriracha to kind of fill in any blank space, if that makes sense. If some of the pickles didn't quite make it into the pile, the sriracha can kind of fill the gap. And last but not least, we're just going to go through and grab a couple of sprigs of this dill. And same thing, I'm just going to right over the sriracha there. Right over there. Ooh, missed one. Grab the end piece. Right there. Now, if you are making non-spicy, you're not going to be able to use sriracha, but you might consider trying maybe a little bit of ketchup. That might work. Or think of a different way to plate it. And I got two more. Missed one again. Guess that means I'm fired from this job. I missed one. Go ahead and go there. And then that one's the last one. And then we'll move on to our Caprese Skewers. There we are. Got some really, really pretty fancy deviled eggs. Didn't take very much longer than a normal set. Maybe another 5 minutes or so. But the presentation is a lot nicer. I'll switch over to here. I'm going to give you a little bit of a visual on how those look. A little bit of pickle, a little bit of sriracha, and a little bit of dill on each one, and also mixed in with the filling. which just kind of adds to the flavor, adds to the experience. And these are done. Now, if you want to make deviled eggs in advance, you can make the filling, you can get everything else ready. Keep the filling aside from the eggs. Put the eggs in the fridge, the halves that you have, put the filling in the fridge, and you can keep it there about 3, maybe 4 days, and then you can just do the plating side when you're ready to actually serve it, or when you get to wherever you're going, wherever your party is. Hopefully this year it's going to be virtual. However, plate everything, really quick right there, or really quick before you leave for the party, and it should keep in the fridge ready to go until you're ready to use it. Let's see. Reducing this down, that can probably go a little bit more. All right, so let's get started on our Caprese Kabobs. Now I've got a bunch of bamboo skewers here. I'm gonna make 3. And then however many you guys wanna make, you can build it up from there. We've got some pretty cool little cherry tomatoes here. I've got some cherry tomato sized mozzarella. I'm actually going to be using a little bit of avocado in mine. And of course, it's not Caprese without basil. So I've got some nice basil leaves here. Now, this is actually pretty simple. And what I like to do is kind of think of this in maybe 3 skewers per stick, or 3 kebabs per skewer. That makes sense. I'm going to take my cherry tomato, just go lengthwise, all the way to the back. I'm going to grab a mozzarella, same thing, all the way to the back. Go ahead and cut up our avocado. We've done this a bunch for guacamole, but I like to remove the little stem piece here. I'm going to cut right down into where the stone is, rotate it around. Take it, split it, just by turning it. I'll go ahead and pop out the seed. We're not keeping the seed this time around because we're not going to be using it for anything. And then for this part of the avocado, I'm actually going to cut it from the back side into a quarter. And then when it's a quarter, you should be able to peel the skin right off. It should come off really, really easily. Like so. Doesn't have to be perfect, but what we want to do is basically cut this into 1/2 inch or so chunks. So I'm going to do another 2, turn it 90 degrees, and then here's where I'm just going to kind of size the rest of my chunks here. And I think my balsamic glaze is getting to the point where it's done. Let's switch over to it real quick. You'll notice the bubbles are getting bigger. It's definitely a lot thicker. So I think we're good on that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that. It's a nice thick glaze. It's actually going to thicken up also as it cools. So keep that in mind. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of grab an avocado, use a fork to guide it onto the skewer, like so. And we're going to do a little piece of basil. And I thought I had a leaf that had come out. There we go. I'm basically going to tear off about an inch or so-ish piece, fold it in half, and then just skewer it right on. Then I'm going to do the same thing 2 more times. Grab our tomato, take it in longwise. I'm going to leave about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch on the back side of the tomato. I'm going to go with our mozzarella. We're going to go with another piece of our avocado here. I love avocado on Caprese, which is why I'm using it. I know it's not traditional, and I don't care. It tastes good, so that's what I'm going to do. Do the same thing with this next piece of basil. Just kind of tear off about an inch, fold it in half. If you want the shiny side out or the darker color side out, just make sure you fold it that way, because usually the back side of the leaf is a little bit more matte and the top side is a little bit deeper green. So we're going to fold it matte side in half. And then just kind of slide that onto the skewer as well. Now it looks like I'm getting 2 on this one, not 3. So I'm actually just going to make it a little bit bigger, increase the distance between the 2. And then if you have a pair of kitchen shears, you can just cut right through, or use your knife and just kind of slice it like so. You got 2 skewers. If you really want, you can also take off the pointy end on this one. Sometimes the shears work a little bit better. Just be careful as you do this. And then that way nobody pokes themselves. Now for those guys, I'm going to grab a small plate. We'll keep our round plate theme going here. I'm just going to line them up like so. Get you off, move you over. We'll go on to skewer 2. So with the 3 skewers, we're going to have 6 kebabs, if they all are 2 and not 3, to a skewer. And the order of this really doesn't matter. If you would rather put the basil in between the avocado and the cheese, the mozzarella, go for it. If you would rather put the tomato and avocado together and then the cheese and the basil, it's your skewer. You do what you're gonna do. But it's this easy to put together some really tasty Caprese Kabobs. Very easy to eat. I've made these for a few parties that I've gone to in the past, and people always seem to enjoy them. There we go, and then we'll top this one off with another piece of mozzarella. So you can do pretty much any order you want. Try and get this guy cut. There we are. There we go. And the last one here. Hey Siri, how much time is left on the timer? Perfect. Go. I'll actually just, well, no, I'll finish this one first. Put him and the mozzarella. Whoop. And tomato, an avocado. So the thing with the avocado on these, split, so I'm not going to use that. Go to the next one. The thing with the avocado is you want to get one that's not super ripe. You want it to be ripe, you want it to be soft. But if it's like a super squishy avocado that you might use in a guacamole, it may not stay on the skewer. It might actually just kind of mush off. So you want a nice firm, ripe avocado, if that makes sense. Right here. And there we go. So now an equal number of each so that I can kind of pattern them out like so. Now what you'll want to do is grab your extra virgin olive oil. Give it a nice drizzle. And then do the same thing with your balsamic vinegar reduction, which should almost be like a syrup. We're just going to kind of pour it over everything. It's going to be nice and sticky. You can use a spoon. I'm using a little half teaspoon measure that we were using earlier. But you'll notice that the balsamic is not just rolling off. Kind of is on the tomatoes, but on everything else, even on the tomatoes, it's sticking. Far better than it would if it was just balsamic vinegar. And then you can definitely get a nice coating of it on everything. Now, one thing you can do, if you can let this cool a little bit, give it a taste. It should be sweeter than when you started. If you find that it's not, or maybe you want to add a little bit, like a hint of sweetness or a hint of something else, you can add a little bit of honey to it, and it'll actually brighten up the flavor. If it's already super sweet, or if you're using something like a fig balsamic vinegar or some other kind of balsamic vinegar that's already got another flavor in there, be careful with that, because you can actually make it too sweet and then just ruin the caprese. So keep that in mind. Go ahead and move these guys back over here. Hey Siri, stop the timer. Move our basil back over here. Got to clean off our work surface, guys. And just slide my avocado up here to the top. Let's take a look at these wings. Go ahead and dry off the cutting board a little bit. Grab our oven-safe glove. And these guys look fan-freaking-tastic. Very nicely done. If you scrape your fork over the top of them, they should be nice and crispy, nice and dry. If they need a little bit more time in the oven, by all means, keep them in the oven a little bit longer. They're your wings. If you want them more crispy, a little bit more well done, go for it. Let's go ahead and build our sauce. The sauce is super, super easy. I'm gonna go ahead and grab our bowl from earlier that we rinsed. Gonna give it a quick dry. And try and find some room. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and put my wings back in the oven while we build our sauce. It's not gonna be more than another couple minutes, so I'm not worried about overcooking or burning the wings. But we're gonna start with our bowl. We're basically gonna put in 3 tablespoons of honey. I've got a really lovely Californian honey here. And we're just going to be generous with the amount of honey that we're putting in. And then we're going to put an equal part of whatever hot sauce you like. Again, I'm going to use sriracha. You can use sambal, you can use pretty much any kind of a chili paste. I wouldn't use Tabasco just because it's really, really watery. Cholula, kind of the same thing, maybe a little bit too watery. But anything that's got a little bit of thickness, a little bit of body. Sambal works really well because it's like a chili paste. You probably could use a chili jam, but I don't think Uncle Roger would approve. Jamie Oliver might, though. All right, we're going to go ahead and just put our spoon up to the side like so. Get this on the side. Oops. Add about 3 tablespoons of sriracha. I'm not measuring exactly because it really doesn't matter, and it gives you a little bit more variety in your own sauce. One time it might be a little bit more spicy, one time it might be a little bit more sweet. I'm gonna go ahead and get these guys mixed together. It's gonna start off pretty sticky because of the honey, but as the sriracha kind of gets incorporated, it's gonna thin out and become very, very nice. Just make sure that it's nice and well mixed. Yeah, I know, Casbro. Fast and Furious is definitely what my street is all about lately. Honestly, it's just this guy who got a truck and like ruined his engine or something. I'm not sure. And so every time he drives by, it's the same car. It's a truck. And it smells like he's using a 2-stroke engine on like a Tundra. so not quite sure what's going on there. Nice, sweet, tangy, a little bit hot. I'm gonna add a little bit of apple cider vinegar to this. You can also use like rice wine vinegar if you wanted. Like a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. I'm also gonna put just a little bit of sesame oil. I know it's not in the ingredients list that I gave you, but I like to add about a teaspoon of sesame oil. Again, this sauce is based on one that Chef John did, and it's just lovely. I've made a couple of modifications to it, but it's a really, really good and easy to make wing sauce. There we are. Give it a little taste. That is delicious. And you might have heard it caught me right in the throat as I was doing my yums. That's a good sauce. Not too spicy, but just enough to give you a kick. All right, grab our wings out again. And I'm gonna take the wings straight out of the oven and put them right into the sauce. Start them off. Kind of set them here. I'm a fan of the flats, so I'm gonna put them in first. You might hear a little bit of a sizzle as you put things in here, but that's perfectly okay. Go. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. Set these guys back in the warm oven. And we're just gonna toss these guys. I have a couple of other hot sauces that I'm also gonna eat with my wings, so I'm just gonna kind of toss these guys. I like to roll them around in the sauce like so, and then just kind of toss them. Flip the bowl back. Again, if you want, you can use your tongs to get them really kind of mixed in well, but flipping them and tossing them works just as good. You get a nice coating on everything. Spin them around a little bit. Oops. Toss them up onto your chest. That works too. These are good to go. So let's switch back to there. I'm gonna grab a square plate here. Go ahead and head back. We'll start in the middle. Put down a couple of these drumettes. Again, don't be afraid to rotate the plate. Things aren't quite lining up the way that you want them to. And we're trying to get a little bit of a build up vertically. It makes it look a little bit more interesting than just being laid out on a plate. Try and build it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be like Leaning Tower of Pisa high or anything like that, but try and get a little bit of a variety here. There we go. And maybe one last one down there just to kind of fill in that space. I'm going to set that over to the side. And what I'm going to do is actually slide my wings to one side of the plate. I'm going to give this a little brush off, like so. Because what I think I'm going to do, build myself up an appetizer plate. So. Three, two, one. Kind of fun looking. And then we'll get our deviled eggs on here as well. Something like that. Get 4 eggs on the plate, and then a 5th one there in the middle. Get our Frankenegg in there. Come here, Frankenegg. Go right there. Like so. And then maybe we'll just alternate our eggs. On that side a bit. Now I'm actually going to change this. Got this going like so. Go ahead and continue that all the way over. It'll make it a little bit more consistent. And still get the same number of eggs over there. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Cool. Now I've still got a little bit of my balsamic glaze and some olive oil on this plate here that we used for kind of staging. Might drizzle that right over my caprese. Again, some of that balsamic is more of a glaze, so it should stick a little bit better to things. And there we go. Beautiful, beautiful sports ball, sports day plate. Switch over here to this camera. Give you guys a little bit of a preview of how that plate looks. Up close. Notice that balsamic is kind of drizzling down towards the eggs. But that is a yummy plate of appetizers if I ever saw one. Now, of course, we did not put everything that we could have on this plate. You can definitely make more eggs. You can definitely make more eggs, more caprese, more wings if you want. We've still got 10 wings in the oven. This is just a really nice kind of way to present it. And of course, this is my dinner tonight. So if it looks better, it's going to taste better. That's why we went to the extra effort to make things look just a little bit prettier. Now, I'm curious, how many people who are watching this have ever seen Hot Ones on YouTube? Great, great interview show. They interview people, ask them questions while they are eating hot wings. Curious who has seen that. All right, Mom, yeah, you're welcome. Come on over. Bye, Molge. Anyway, they've got a really hot sauce called the Last Dab. And part of the reason that I wanted to save some of my wings over here is because I wanted to douse one with the Last Dab. Jump on in. I got 2 sauces. Cauliflower wings, absolutely. They'll work perfectly for this, even with all the seasoning and everything. They've got a really nice garlicky hot sauce, and then of course they've got the Last Dab. I've got a friend of mine, him and I really like the Last Dab. It's over 2 million Scoville, if you believe them. Start with the garlic sauce. Good sauce. Wing is super hot because it just came out of the oven. But not a bad wing. Not very hot. I'll grab one more wing. Let it cool down for a bit. I'll jump over and eat one of my wings with my sauce on it. And we'll do a last dab. Yeah, cauliflower wings should work really well. You can use the exact same dressing or dusting that we did. I think everything will work out pretty well. And then same thing with the sauce. A little bit of honey, a little bit of hot sauce. Toss it. It should be perfect. All right. Let that cool down a bit. Go ahead and get some of this 2 million Scoville sauce on this wing. Nice little rub in. If you rub your sauce into your wing while it's warm, it'll stick a little bit better, kind of melt into the skin, and become super yummy. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's go ahead and grab one of our own wings and give this a try. That's a yummy, yummy sriracha honey sauce. Apple cider gives it a little bit of a zing. Not a hot zing, but like that vinegary zing. Very tasty. And now, anybody want to ask me a question to answer while I'm eating this incredibly hot wing? Got a cold beer right here. Guess it's a little warm since I poured it about an hour and a half ago, but still tasty. All right, this is the last dab. Call it the last dab because it's tradition around here to put a little bit of extra on the last wing. Put a little bit extra on the last wing. So do you like food? Great question. Explain the case 1 carrier landing. That's a great one. All right, so the first question. Yes, I do like food. Case 1 carrier landing. You start coming in at the back of the ship, going about 350 knots. At 800 feet above the water. You pass the ship, you look down, you take a look at the deck to make sure that it's clear. Give it about 10 seconds, and then you pull into a hard left turn, maintaining your altitude, 800 feet. When you hit 265 knots, you deploy your gear, you drop your flaps, and by the time those come down, you should be going 180 degrees to the direction of the carrier. Reduce your altitude to about 700 feet. Look over until you're getting just past the stern of the ship, the back of the ship. That's when you start your turn inbound on your approach to the carrier. And that is a hot sauce. Very tasty though, almost pineapple-y. Like pineapple death. Oh man. As you're coming around the back of the ship, you change your angle of bank so that you can line up with the final approach on course. And then you just kind of moderate your power so that you can maintain your descent rate until you come down. And you basically just want to crash into the back of the boat. And by the back, I mean the back third of the top of the boat, and the hook on the back of the plane will catch one of the wires, and you'll stop. Now, every time you land on the carrier, you want to go full power all the way to afterburner, just in case you miss. Nose is starting to run. That way, you have enough energy to continue and not crash into the ocean in front of the ship. Not very fun to crash into the ocean, and even less fun to get run over by an aircraft carrier after you crash into the ocean. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me on another wonderful Cook Along Live. Next week, I have no idea what I'm doing. It might be the first week in 45 weeks that I take a weekend off from Cook Along Live and just enjoy the sports ball weekend. And we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll put together some kind of a produced video or something like that, cooking something. Or grilling, or maybe we'll do something Saturday. Not 100% sure. We'll see. Subscribe to my Instagram. You'll find out what I'm doing next weekend, if anything. And of course, if you're not subscribed already to YouTube, subscribe here. I'm doing 3 aviation videos a week, and of course, the Cook Along Live on Sunday. So, everybody, have a great night. I'm going to go ahead and drink some of this beer to try and put out the fire. But that's a lovely sauce. I think it's super, super delicious. Woo. Mom, I would love to come watch the game. I'm still doing the social distancing thing, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, everybody, have a great night, and I'll see you next week on another Cook Along Live. Whew, a hot sauce. Let's see if I can figure out how to end the stream now while I'm trying to think through all of this. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.